It was the coldest day of the year. The wind cut through the trees like knives. Snow blanketed everything in silence. She was just out for a walk. No destination. No reason, just one of those days you need fresh air and a little space from the world. But that quiet, it didn't last long. Up ahead, in the distance, something moved. Barely. She stopped. Squinted. At first, it looked like a shadow against the snow. But then it shifted. Shivered. She walked closer, heart starting to race. What she found? No one could have prepared her for that. A dog. A German shepherd. Tied tightly to a tree. His fur was covered in frost. His body curled in the snow like he was trying to disappear. No barking. No growling. Just silence. His eyes opened slowly. And met hers. And in that moment, everything changed. She didn't know his name. She didn't know where he came from, or who could do something like this. But she knew one thing for sure. If she walked away, he would die. What she did next shocked even the rescue team. And it changed not just his life, but hers. Forever. Stay with me, because what happened after that will stay with you long after this story ends. She rushed toward him, not thinking, just moving. Every step felt heavier than the snow beneath her boots. The closer she got, the more horrifying it became. The rope around his neck wasn't just tight. It was cutting into his skin. Frozen, frayed, and soaked in blood that had long since turned dark in the cold. His body was so still, she thought he might already be gone. But then, a flicker. His ear twitched. He was alive. Barely. She knelt down slowly. No sudden moves. No loud words. Just quiet. Gentle. Present. "Hey, buddy," she whispered. And for the first time, he blinked. His eyes. They weren't angry. They weren't even afraid anymore. They were empty. Like he had already accepted that this was how his story would end. No one knew how long he'd been out there. Tied. Abandoned. Left to freeze, alone. No food. No water. No shelter. Just a broken dog, in a broken world, with no one coming for him. Until her. She couldn't believe anyone would do this. And yet, there he was, proof that cruelty doesn't always come with sound. Sometimes, it just walks away. And leaves something behind to die. But she wasn't going to let that happen. Not today. Not to him. She had no leash, no plan, no idea how to help a dog like this. But none of that mattered. Because now, he was her responsibility. She reached for the rope. Slowly. Carefully. Like she was defusing a bomb. The dog didn't move. Didn't flinch. Didn't fight. It was almost worse than if he had. He'd already learned that no one reaching toward him meant safety. So he stayed still. Because what was the point? The rope was frozen solid, digging into the base of his neck. She took off her gloves, ignoring the sting of the cold. Used her bare hands to pry it loose, inch by inch. Her fingers turned red, then pale. Still, she didn't stop. Finally, with one last tug, it came free. The dog staggered forward a step. Then collapsed into the snow. Not from fear. Not from pain. From exhaustion. He had no strength left to run, bark, or even stand. So she did the only thing she could. She dropped to her knees, wrapped him in her coat, and pulled him into her arms. He didn't resist. He just let go. She whispered softly, "It's okay. You're safe now." And maybe, just maybe, he believed her. She carried him to her car, her arms shaking from effort and cold. She had no idea what to do next. No vet appointment. No crate. No supplies. Just a shivering, broken dog. And a promise she wasn't going to break. She thought getting him in the car meant the worst was over. She was wrong. The hardest part hadn't even started yet. The car heater was blasting, but he still shivered. Not just from the cold. From fear. Every bump in the road, every passing car, made him flinch. He curled tighter into the back seat, refusing to lift his head. She kept glancing at him through the mirror. She didn't speak. She didn't try to touch him. She just drove. Fast. Focused. When they got to her house, he didn't move. Not even when she opened the door and called softly to him. So she sat beside him in the back seat, in silence, for almost 20 minutes. Until finally, he looked at her. Not with trust. Not with hope. But with a question. Why haven't you left me yet? She didn't leave. She waited. And eventually, he stepped out. Inside, she set up a blanket by the fireplace. A bowl of food. Fresh water. But he didn't eat. Didn't drink. He stood in the corner of the room, staring at the wall. Like he wasn't sure if this was real. Or just another cruel joke. That night, he didn't sleep. Neither did she. She could hear him pacing, whining softly. Not loud, not desperate. Just lost. He didn't understand kindness. Didn't trust warmth. Didn't believe in comfort. Because life had taught him none of those things were real. But what he didn't know yet was that he'd just landed in the one place that wouldn't give up on him. He wouldn't eat. Wouldn't rest. Wouldn't even look her in the eye. But then, something changed. And it all started with a single, quiet moment. The next morning was quiet. She tiptoed into the living room, not sure what she'd find. And there he was. Still in the corner. Still silent. But watching her now. It wasn't fear in his eyes anymore. It was something else. Cautious curiosity. She didn't walk toward him. She just sat on the floor. Cross-legged. Still. Placed a few tiny pieces of food on the floor between them. And waited. Minutes passed. Nothing. Then. A step. One slow, trembling paw forward. Then another. He sniffed the food, looked up at her. And ate. Just a bite. But it was everything. That night, he didn't stay in the corner. He curled up, still at a distance, on the edge of the blanket. Closer. And the night after that, closer still. Each day brought a tiny miracle. He let her place the food bowl next to him. He followed her to the door when she left the room. He even sniffed her hand once. Not all at once. Not a leap. Just small steps. But to her, it was like watching a soul come back to life. Then, one night, she felt a soft nudge on her arm. She turned. And there he was. Looking up at her. Then he did something that stopped her breath. He lifted his paw. And placed it gently in her lap. No bark. No sound. Just that one gesture. It was like he was saying, I think I want to stay. That paw on her lap. That was the beginning. Because what came next was nothing short of a transformation. From that moment on, everything began to change. Not overnight. Not in some dramatic, movie-style turnaround. But slowly. Like spring thawing through winter. Each morning, he greeted her at the door. Not with barking or jumping. Just a quiet presence. A soft tail wag. He started exploring the house. Room by room. Corner by corner. Like a child seeing the world for the first time. He discovered toys. At first, he didn't know what to do with them. He just stared. Then one day, he picked up a squeaky ball. And dropped it in her lap. She cried. Not because it was a toy. But because it meant he was ready to play again. Ready to live again. Walks became their thing. At first, he was scared of everything. Cars, people, even leaves blowing across the sidewalk. But with her beside him, step by step, the fear faded. He walked taller. Looked around more. Began to hold his head high. He even learned to sleep. Truly sleep. Stretched out, belly up, legs sprawled across the couch. Because finally, he felt safe. He became her shadow. Following her from room to room. Never letting her out of sight. Not out of fear. But trust. He had gone from a dog who had given up. To a soul who believed in life again. And she? She wasn't just a rescuer anymore. She was his home. But just when everyone thought the story was complete, she did something that no one expected. Something that made his rescue truly unforgettable. By now, they were inseparable. Walks at sunrise. Meals side by side. Late night cuddles by the fire. She gave him a name, Coda. Short for Dakota, meaning friend. Because that's exactly what he had become. Not just a dog. But her closest, quietest companion. The rescue organization called one day. They were checking in, ready to begin the rehoming process. Find Coda a forever family. That was the plan all along, wasn't it? But she paused, held the phone in silence for a few seconds, and then softly said, "I can't." Not because he wasn't ready. He was. He was healthy, playful, full of life again. But because she knew. He'd already found his home. With her. She filled out the adoption papers that same day. But not with excitement. With tears. Because it hit her all at once. This wasn't just about rescuing a dog. It was about healing together. She hadn't realized how broken she'd been too. How lonely. How numb. But Coda changed all of that. Every time he leaned against her leg. Every time he looked back at her on a walk to make sure she was still there. Every time he rested his head in her lap like it was the safest place in the world. He reminded her. Sometimes, saving someone else is what saves you too. Their story doesn't end with rescue. It begins there. And what it became, is a lesson we all need to hear. Not all heroes wear capes. Some wear old winter coats. And carry broken dogs out of the snow. Coda's story isn't just about survival. It's about transformation. Trust. Healing. It's about what happens when one person decides not to look away. Not to scroll past. Not to say, someone else will help. Because someone did help. She didn't wait for permission. She didn't ask, what if it's dangerous? She just acted. And because of that, a dog who had been discarded like trash, now sleeps soundly at the feet of the person who loves him most. We often think grand gestures change the world. But sometimes, it's a quiet decision made on a freezing day. To stop. To kneel. To care. Coda may never understand what was done to him. But he knows what love feels like now. And she'll never forget the moment his paw touched her lap. The moment he chose to trust again. If there's one thing this story teaches us, it's this. Kindness isn't always easy. But it's always worth it. So next time you see something that doesn't feel right, something that hurts your heart, don't ignore it. Don't turn away. Because you never know. You just might be the person who changes everything. If this story moved you, share it. Someone out there might need to be reminded that there's still good in this world. That second chances exist. That healing is possible.